Marjorie, tell me about the Susan B. Anthony list. I think many people know about it, but this is one of the most powerful and important pro-life organizations that we have in America. How did you come to begin the Susan B. Anthony list?
Well, simply put, it's the political muscle of the pro-life movement. So we're all about elections, electing the president, electing the Senate, electing the House, electing governors that will pass laws that save lives. Originally, we were only, when it was in my living room and just a bunch of us women kind of trying to figure things out, we were only about electing pro-life women to public office. And we still are about that. We still make it an important priority. But now, in terms of the overall strategy of the movement, the political piece of it especially, that's our day-to-day work.
How would you describe the past 4 years for the pro-life movement? To be honest, I was one who was skeptical when Donald Trump was running for president. You know, we've seen that so many times where suddenly someone has a late in life pro-life conversion, just as coincidentally they're getting ready to run for president in the Republican Party. So I'm not sure I believed him on it. After 4 years, it's really been quite a 4 years for pro-lifers, hasn't it?
Oh, wow. It's been an escalating moment for the movement. I really think the space of those 4 years has been the distance between being kind of the stepchild of the Republican Party to being a central driving force of the Republican Party, who our candidates are, what our agenda is on the federal level and on the state level. I was with you. I was deeply skeptical during the primary. I opposed him, my organization opposed him in Iowa and South Carolina, those two early primaries that are really pivotal for primary elections in the Republican Party. We said then, he's our last choice. In fact, anybody but him would be better. And boy, was I wrong. And now I'm a mother of 5, and so I've been taught that being wrong happens quite a lot, pretty much every day, right? But I've never been wrong and so happy at the same time. And the way we dealt with that situation when he was very clearly going to be the nominee is we did what I try to do in life generally, which is treat people the way they say they want to be, rather than what you suspect they might be. And so we went to him. Kellyanne Conway and I were great friends, and she had been very recently brought on board, and she helped us talk with him about a series of commitments. We drafted a letter. He signed his name to those commitments, and that in politics is gold. We have something to align his actions against, his commitments on paper. After that, we use those commitments as the central organizing principle of all of our Get Out the Vote activities in all the battleground states. So then later, when he was even before he was being sworn in, he was bringing on staff that would implement those very commitments. So early on, we knew this is going to be better than we worried about. And these 4 years have borne out every day the pro-life commitment that this president has. He's changed everything.
Talk a little bit about the transformation of the federal judiciary and the Supreme Court under the 4-year term of Donald Trump.
Nothing is more important than the revolution that's gone on in the judiciary for the pro-life cause. In fact, it's the precondition for any actual change to come about in pro-life law in this country. Since 1973, we've been stymied because of the problem of the judiciary. So his commitment to appoint only pro-life judges was enormous and a watershed for the pro-life movement. No one has appointed more judges than this president.
When you look at the landscape of the judiciary, one of the reasons that it's important is because the pro-life cause has made so many gains on the local level, on the state level, and those can't get anywhere if you immediately go to federal court and some judge strikes it down. I think, we're not asking for judicial supremacy where judges make laws that we like. We're asking judges to stay out of the way and let the people make the laws. The people have been making increasing pro-life laws, haven't they?
That's right. Yes, we've seen record numbers of very bold pieces of legislation passing all over the country. But as you say, there's a backstop, and the backstop is Roe versus Wade. Roe versus Wade is judicial supremacy. Roe versus Wade said, you may have a lot of differing opinions out there from state to state about what the abortion abortion law should be, but we don't care. We're gonna big step over you and make sure that your voice does not make its way into the law in your state. And on something that is such a deeply held moral conviction, what an outrage that this has reigned supreme over this country since 1973, when it's about the death of little boys and girls every single day. Not losing sight of that there's nothing more oppressive since the founding of our country. Maybe a handful of other human rights causes we can align ourselves with and understand how oppressive the judiciary can be in preventing us from fixing this. So yes, if we erode or overturn Roe versus Wade, which I think is not far away, we will begin to see the will of the people, state by state, making its way into the law, and will save hundreds of thousands of lives initially every single year. That spiritual, moral, physical change, I don't even think we can put our mind around yet, but it is all good because each one of them was created by God for purposes that only these little ones could fulfill. It's mind-boggling and beautiful.
I think it's important for people to understand that too, because there's certain jadedness that happens, and I've heard many Christians say, and even pastors say, look, the political stuff doesn't work. We've been hammering away at Roe v. Wade for 47 years. It's still there. Still, hundreds of thousands, maybe 1 million babies a year die. It doesn't do any good. Of course, we all want Roe v. Wade to be overturned, but that ignores a lot of progress that results in real human boys and girls being born into the world, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that cynicism, that pessimism, that can't that has been going on for 47 years has been, I think, more burdensome, more harmful than what we get from the other side, from NARAL and now in Planned Parenthood. They don't see this as the birth of a little boy or a little girl created by God, sent here for a specific purpose. They don't think that, but we do. So if we do think that, how do you act? You act as if each one of them is exactly what we say they are, and we work until we can't work anymore. Christians are people that we labor in the trenches no matter what. We don't say, hey, there's really no chance to stop this great human evil in our time, so we're just going to hang it up and go play pool tonight. We don't give up. We see the example of Christ walking to the cross, everything that fighting something important really looks like. It doesn't look like glory all the time. It looks nasty and muddy, and there'll be conflict, but there's always the reward at the end that we know, and it's not in this world, it's in the next. So with that type of conviction, which people who don't believe don't have, right? They don't have that, I'm not going to get all the goodies in this world. They're actually way better later. We wouldn't have seen the abolition movement with the strength that it had. We would not have seen the suffrage movement with the strength that it had. The movement to stop child labor in the early 1900s. All of these great human evils were led by people with great Christian conviction. And we have the blessing in this country of that we have the tools of democracy that the founders gave us to pick those tools up and get to work fixing what ails us.
You had an organization named after Susan B. Anthony. There are many who say, well, Christianity is oppressive to women. They make fun of Mike Pence, and Amy Coney Barrett, The Handmaid's Tale, and so forth. It's an oppressive movement. As a woman heading a pro-life organization, an organization that is in part dedicated to getting pro-life women elected, is Christianity anti-woman? Is Christianity oppressive to women?
Well, the truth sets you free, man or woman, and the truth sets us free in unique and complementary ways, men and women. I've found in my own life, in a life of constant conversion, but definitely a conversion to really believing that God is real in my day-to-day life. I used to be very pro-choice, and I thought that abortion was the great liberator. And boy, was I wrong, so enormously wrong. And I wouldn't have known that. I do not believe I would have ever come to change my position if it hadn't been for the truths of the gospel.
Well, Marjorie, we sit in a much different position than we did just a couple of decades ago in the pro-life movement. You and, of course, the Susan B. Anthony list are a major part of that. Thank you for all the work you've done. Thank you for being with us.
No, it's a privilege to be with you and work with all those groups. Thanks for having me.